This is the Tuesday edition. Tomorrow is the Wednesday edition, which is Dear Bumi. And on Thursday, we are going to have open mic on Thursday. And on Saturday, we are going to look at the implications of this, of the decision to bring history back into the curriculum of schools. I think it's nationwide, but at least the one announcement that was made in Lagos. Of course, Friday, we're going to have the continuation of the Youth Forum, which we already agreed. You know, last week there was the, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, we had Daddy Ye and, no, we had the Accountant General, indicating who's undergoing trial for stealing billions of naira, saying that, okay, he wanted to do a plea bargain. So I said, okay, let me call my good friend Yemi Candy Johnson, SAN. Every time you call the name, you must always add SAN to it because it's not, it will be silk, it's not easy. Let me use that to lure him into the studio so we can have a general, like Obaya Hagwan will say, Krika Crankum. Kum gaga tuan gaga. Yemi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
Morning. Yeah, it's always nice to lure you in so we can now benefit from your experience. First, and in the first instance, under what circumstances should plea bargain be considered? Surely it's not every case, or is it every case that can go in the way of plea bargaining?
The first thing to say is that plea bargaining is not really a remarkable thing.
Okay.
It's new to our own criminal justice. It was very common and still very common in a place like the United States. 90 to 95% of criminal cases in the United States are resolved by plea bargains.
I see.
95%. Now, so the idea is that it's a device for managing the criminal justice system and its resources between a number of crimes, a number of accused persons, because the greater purpose of the criminal justice system is not to pursue the highest penalty for each individual offense, but to create a regime and a system whereby people know that there are consequences that are certain, that are efficient, that are swift for breach of the law, and for the resources of criminal justice to be used with a varying degree of commitment for offenses depending on how society and the administration of justice practitioners consider to be important. So it's not remarkable. In 2011, I think it was, first Lagos State, and then in 2015, the federal government passed an Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which for the first time captures a procedure for plea bargaining. Now, the fact is that we don't have the resources to try every single case to its limit. In certain cases, because of the cost, because of difficulties, because of the public interest, because of a variety of factors which can legitimately be taken into consideration, it may be prudent to make a plea bargain. So, for example, somebody steals 1 billion naira. It was not a crime committed with violence. It was not a crime. It was a crime that he's not likely to repeat. The public interest requires that money be recovered. And this is almost always a part of a plea bargain. Restitution.
I see.
Restitution. Secondly, you must prove to the public, because they need to have confidence in the criminal justice system, you must prove to them that the law has an impact and it affects big and poor. Recently, I heard the United States Attorney General talking about no one in America is above the law, not even a former president, because it's important for the public to know that the big fish will not escape. If you can catch me for stealing a goat, when you catch a man who steals 1 billion, you should punish him as well. But what is the punishment? What will satisfy the public as a result of this criminal prosecution? It may not be that he's given the death sentence. It may be that he's stripped of all his assets. It may be that he has a 30-day sentence. It depends. You have to balance it. And that judgment is usually for the judge, but when the public prosecution is undertaken by the Ministry of Justice, they can consider the public interest in determining what type of deal should be struck.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. I mean, that sounds... But do you, obviously, but I just want to ask, like you would do if you are cross-examining, because the way you lawyers operate is very funny. You already know who I am. You say, what are your names?
For the record.
So for the record,
Yes.
you have to plead guilty in the first instance.
Yes, well, you see, a plea bargain may also involve an agreement as to what you will plead guilty to.
Yes.
So it's a bargain. It's a bargain as to how you will plead. You cannot come on a plea bargain and plead not guilty. The fact is that consequences follow your action only if you're guilty. the power of the law to affect your assets, to affect your liberty, which may be ameliorated by an agreement, is contingent upon your being guilty of those offenses. So I'm being charged with murder. It's going to be difficult for you to prove a convicted murder, but you can prove that I drove recklessly and endangered life, which will give me 10 years. Okay, we're not going to pursue the murder charge, but we're going to punish you by, if you plead guilty to a lesser offense. Or to a different... Another aspect of the regulation of the criminal justice system is it's possible to even reach a non-prosecute agreement.
Oh, really?
Sure. I mean, in many jurisdictions, you arrest the driver of an important politician for driving recklessly and
like
kill.
Who?
Not like you, of course.
I'm not a politician.
But this other gentleman, if we use him as an example, he looks very political. Well fed and well turned out.
Yes.
So what they often do is they trade up. So I'm arrested for a burglary, and you say, well, this is it. We've got you on video. He said, okay, I committed the burglary, but my boss, the president of the Senate, has $500 million in his backyard, which he cannot put into the bank. He's guilty of money laundering. Sure, if you tell me exactly where that money is, I will reach an agreement not to prosecute you for your offense on condition that you cooperate with me in the same regard. So there are many devices for managing the criminal justice system in the context of its purpose. And that is one such.
It doesn't lead to a conviction. Where I'm going is such a person seen as a convict?
Yeah. Well, if you're charged with an offense, a variety of consequences can follow. One, you may be prosecuted to conviction. And very often, if you go through an organized system of justice, if you go through that process and you waste public resources, very often you will get the highest possible penalty. But we say, look, we want to resolve this matter. We want to vindicate the public. We want them to know something has been done. So we want to do a deal. So you come to the prosecution and say, my client has somebody else to trade. Somebody else to come to the crime. Or my client will plead guilty to misdemeanor and take a non-custodial sentence on the basis that you convict him of that. Because the public interest is always, in my view, that a conviction follows a public accusation. So if you're going to do either, we go to you can't prove guilt, or we reach a deal before. So if you're bargaining on a plea, almost always it is conviction. Part of the plea is admission of the facts upon which you've been accused. Because in organized systems, if you reach a plea bargain, the judge will say, right, okay, so tell me what you did. Because it's the job of the judge, even under our law, to be sure that he is actually genuinely, voluntarily pleading to those charges. And the conviction is based on actual facts. So this is what I did. Oh, well, we want you to consider 7 other cases that I was involved in, but they're all encapsulated in the agreement. The agreement is that I won't be charged for those, but as a consequence, I will face a penalty. There must be a penalty, and there cannot be a penalty without a conviction.
So we can safely say that, okay, even if you're not doing the time and maybe seizure,
sure,
and things like
restitution that, is one of the greatest advantages the public have.
You're still a convict. You're still an ex-convict.
Correct.
And that applies all over the world.
Correct.
So that's good.
But the type of thing you're convicted for has consequences on your behavior and your rights thereafter. So, for example, if you are convicted of reckless endangerment, it may be different from criminal negligent homicide or manslaughter. So you would hope that if you were assisting by pleading to an offense, you would almost always wish to plead to a lesser offense or to a lesser sentence. Okay, I have no choice. I'm going to be convicted of murder. I'm not going to contest the case, but don't give me life. One of the consequences for my saving the public resources is that I should be given a sentence of 25 years with an option to come out after 10 years. So a variety of arrangements are possible. The problem that we have with administering such a sophisticated system is the lack of trust in those who operate the system. Because if at any stage, from the side of the judge, from the side of the prosecutor, the defense, and from often forces outside the system of justice, the fidelity of the system may be subverted. And this is exactly the danger. Unless we have confidence in those who administer the system of justice, we cannot have confidence in a device such as this. Which is
there a time lag in which you can be an ex-convict? Remember that all over the world, if you're convicted, it comes with certain, at the very least, perceptions.
Sure.
At the very least, if you want to fill a visa form, whatever is right, have you ever been convicted? You have to tick yes and not no.
Sure. It's relevant to a number of discretions and a number of opportunities that you may have. You mentioned the case of visa applications. It cannot exclude you from coming to a country, but they're entitled to decide for themselves whether the nature of the offense is one they don't want to encourage. So, example, in the United Kingdom, if you be convicted of a drug offense, it's almost unlikely that you'll be granted a visa because the public policy of that country is to
what if you have dual nationality?
Well, if you have a British nationality, you can
so
go
they can't stop you from coming.
They can't stop their own national from coming to their country.
In America, if you had a green card, would it be withdrawn?
Well, a green card is a right to stay.
To stay.
It's not a citizenship, although it may lead to it. And, of course, it must be one of the conditions of your stay on any type of visa that you don't commit criminal activity. So I would suspect...
But for how long? I think there's a time lag after which you can stop being regarded as a criminal.
Yeah, it depends on the country and the purpose. For example, the United Kingdom, they have a law called the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. It is considered important for the Regulation Society that having paid the price for a crime, there must be a place of forgiveness. And so at some stage, your conviction would be eradicated from the record. In Nigeria, and it's topical because under our constitution, the potential for exclusion or disqualification of a candidate under the constitution arises in the context of our constitution, where the provision is made that if a person has been convicted within 10 years of an offense involving dishonesty, or which is a contravention of the code of conduct for public officers, that person is not qualified under our constitution to seek offices.
Yeah, that's what applies in Nigeria.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. Now, we now come to the issue of pardon. What does pardon mean? Recently, we had these two top politicians being pardoned. What does it mean? They are no longer ex-convicts or what?
Well, they've been pardoned, which means that their conviction has been extinguished.
Really?
The state has forgiven them. So the answer is that I have a pardon. It's not just that you're freed from the consequences, but you were convicted. If someone said you were an ex-convict, that would be a fact. But the legal effect of your being pardoned is that the state will not hold your conviction against you.
And therefore you could vie for public office?
Well, our constitution, which provides the power of the president to exercise the prerogative of mercy, also provides that for specific offices there are qualifications which you must have. One of those qualifications is that you should not have been convicted within 10 years of events of an offense involving dishonesty. So even though you've been pardoned, it would be a contentious question as to whether the pardon, which for public purposes and record purposes has eradicated your conviction, prevents you from running. I would hold the view that you will be prevented in any event as a matter of law in those circumstances from running for public office.
I mean, so what this so this pardon means these two gentlemen is an ex-convicted gentleman.
Well, you already made a determination that you can be an ex-convict and a gentleman.
That's what I like having you here. That's me.
I don't want to contest your conclusion.
I ran straight bang into that. Incidentally, I just with Jimi Disu and I have Yemi Gandhi Johnson, and we're talking about this issue of plea bargaining, which, of course, was engineered by the two politicians who were not the ones who were pardoned, the gentleman who is standing trial. Yes. We can't talk about the trial itself, yes. But there's a likely. But you say there must be restitution.
On you see, the purpose of any action in the criminal justice system is to vindicate the public right and the public interest. And it is the public interest that crimes must not go unpunished. You cannot, in good conscience, allow a man to keep the profits of his crime and say that the right of the public has been vindicated. And in fact, we now have a Proceeds of Crime Act, which was signed into law in March, I think, this year by the president, which makes specific provisions for recovering, for interdicting, and for dealing with proceeds of crime. Because one of the problems we've had in Nigeria is that the proceeds of crime get into the hands of certain justice officials and they become the subject of crime itself.
Yes.
Crime on crime.
What a country. Okay, look, we don't seem to be winning the so-called war on corruption, are we?
Is there war on corruption?
There is. I heard last time I heard. Should we ask him?
Yes.
Who?
The politician.
The politician.
How? Why do you want to
you
ask
are
me?
Do you know whether there's a war on corruption or not?
He is a socialist. He's wearing the Fidel Castro.
No.
I'm a poor man.
No.
I'm wearing singlets.
We have to. I think it's only the senior advocate that can tell us. They are the ones,
No, the politicians. But we have the rules, but the politicians decide what we should use them for.
Yeah.
So
we have the way. We have the say. But the politicians have the way.
Yeah,
and you are one of them.
I am not one of them.
He hasn't told us yet whether there is one corruption.
I am not a politician.
You look like one. I think he's practicing to be one. Anyway, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad
Badger.
Don't let me say the one on my mind. We are going to open up our lines now, 0700 993 993 993 and 014657190. I'd like to take one or two calls before we go on break in about 5 minutes. Hello, please switch off your radio.
Okay. Uncle Jimmy.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Who's calling?
Hello.
Go on, sir. Who's calling?
Yes, sir. Please, your guest there, he has really highlighted most of the things I wanted to know about our criminal justice and plea bargain. But my observation is on the pardon, presidential pardon. So now, what are the criteria for one to be given presidential pardon? And also, how often does it come? How often does it come?
All right. Now, let me rephrase what he thinks. What does the law say about the reasons for giving presidential pardon? And then he wants to know whether it's a seasonal thing, whether it's Independence Day only or things like that. Or the president could really well wake up, which he did, and then just said, I pardon them.
The prerogative of mercy belongs to a sovereign in any state. The personification of that sovereign in Nigeria is the president. In reality, that provision is almost limitless, unlimited by law, because the president can exercise it as a sovereign can, with an unreviewable authority.
Well, it's even said that really it's the Council of States that decides such things.
Well, the Council of State is established to advise the president. Same thing with the Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy is to advise the president. The president can refuse the advice of the Council of State.
Yes.
He can refuse the advice of the Council of the Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy. And because the president does not have the capacity to examine the facts of each individual case, he has to rely on agencies of government and agencies under his control to give him advice. One of these critical is the Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy, which is headed by the Attorney General. And the recent controversy over pardons and smuggling in lists shows either the inefficiency, the incompetence, or corruption of that process as it is being managed right now. Because it is possible for a variety of people, for a variety of corrupt purposes or designs, to make their way into the list. I mean, the story that has been the subject of the charge
very bad.
is that somebody put his name, put an individual who had just been convicted and whose case was appealed on the list. That can be done for the exchange for corrupt inducement. And so we now know that as it operates here, our own process of mercy, the process by which the president exercises a most fundamental power, is highly susceptible to corruption. And we have seen it.
Okay, I think I can just about squeeze in one more call, can I? One more call, but very quickly. Hello?
Yeah, good morning.
Straight to the point, no time.
Yeah, hello, morning, sir.
Morning.
I always feel happy whenever I hear the law story. My question of Jim.
Yes.
Where are the law, where we have this set of people running our judiciary, even from the Attorney General?
So you want him to be Attorney General or what? They can't pay him, and he not go thief.
Hello?
You can't pay
Uncle
him.
Jimmy?
All right, point noted. It's almost 9:23. Point noted. Are you game for any form of public office now in the future? Just for the records.
I have no intention, I have no desire.
Yes.
But I recognize that if you're needed for something, it's very difficult
from your country, yes,
to refuse. I mean, if somebody said you're needed for a purpose, you have to ask two questions. First is, what do you want me to do? If what you want me to do is something that I have the capacity and I have the will to do. The second question is that, will you back me up 100%? So if I held public office and the person who appointed me would not back me up in the faithful execution of that assignment, I would not do the job.
Okay. But what I also know is that they cannot pay you. All right.
I'm very cheap.
Even I cannot pay you. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I'm going to be asking him about the current controversy in the bar. There's a controversy going on. I'd like to ask his comment on. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Only one station gives you great talk every day.
On the show yesterday, you spoke about the tariff hike, electricity tariff hike.
Yes.
I'm hearing news today that is being posted.
The debaters are ready. The panel of judges are ready. The judges have decided. The prize money is ready. 1 million naira. There's only one question left, Lagos. Are you, the audience, ready? It's the August edition of the I Beg to Differ debate tournament. I am Sandra Ezekwesili, your moderator. Join me from August 8th as the best student debaters go head to head. Weekdays at 4 on 99.3 Nigeria Info FM. This tournament is supported by Webster University, RLG Communications, Obiwizi.com, Booker Hot, and Storm Body Spray.
It is power.
Information rules the world.
Get informed.
Stay informed. Nigeria Info, your number one station for talk.
At ShopRite, you'll find everything you need and more. Buy any 5 Indomie 100-gram fried or chicken pepper soup noodles at 649 naira 99 kobo, and buy 40 variants of 100 ml Capri Sun at 2,599 naira 99 kobo. All prices valid till 21st of August 2022. ShopRite, lower prices you can trust always.
Waiting you sabi about the beautiful game. You there for the life and style. Fantasy leagues, bass goals, ginger and oak tall, breaking down the stats even to the MVPs, taking no L's and only for the W's. I beg, then Showmax Pro get news for you. Football season is back. Live, e-choke. Watch the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, anywhere on any screen. Mado. Stream the action from SuperSport live on Showmax Pro. Sign up at Showmax.com.
Football is back.
Goals are back. Banter is back. That edge of your seat feeling is back. Because big winnings are back on BetKing with boosted odds, cash outs to celebrate your wins early, and accumulator bonus on your selections. What are you waiting for? Bet on BetKing.com and get the football feeling back. That feeling? That's BetKing. Happy birthday to you.
We need professional pictures of the birthday girl. Beautiful. Hey, smile for the camera. Hold on, I have an idea. Everyone, put on your phone torchlight. Here, take my Camon 19 Pro. It works great for portraits in low light. Yo, these portraits are clear. I told you, this is the Every Moment Portrait Master.
That's right. The new Techno Camon 19 series, running on the latest Android OS with Google Apps, is your Every Moment Portrait Master. With its 64MP Bright Night triple portrait camera, the Camon 19 is designed to give you perfect natural tone portrait photos, whether in low light or daytime. Buy any of the Techno Camon 19 smartphones to get an instant gift and enjoy up to 24 months device and 100 days broken screen warranty. Purchase your device with Easy Buy for a down payment as low as 30%. Hurry now! Visit the nearest authorized Techno outlet to get yours today. Techno, stop at nothing.
Muldami University, Irua, Edo State invites applications for qualified students for admission into the following degree programs for the year 2020-2023 academic session: Civil Engineering, Computer Engineering, Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Food Science and Technology, Material and Metallurgical Engineering, Mechanical Engineering, Mass Communication, Accounting, Entrepreneurship, Economics, Chemistry, Computer Science, Software Engineering, Biotechnology, Physics with Electronics, and Mathematics. Apply now for instant admission. Visit www.mudiameuniversity.edu.ng/prospective-students or apply directly at the University University Campus, Idumabi, Irua, Edo State. For more information, email info@mudiameuniversity.edu.ng or call 0815-978-7118. Mudiame University, Mind of Innovation.
Today is a good day. A good day to take a walk. A good day to reach for your goals. A good day to finish reading that book. A good day to connect with your friends while doing the things you love. A good day to shoot your shot. A good day to enjoy life to the fullest with Malta Guinness.
Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
You're listening to Jimi Disu right here on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
You're welcome back. You don't have a Candid Johnson in the studio and let him go away without him commenting on the recent developments in the bar. And that, of course, has to do with the Ogunde case. I think our listeners know quite well about that. But we've heard so many things, so I thought that maybe you would want to educate my listeners and tell them what exactly it is. And then I heard that there's a controversy going on. The Chief Wole Olanikwekun refused to step down as chairman of the BOB, Body of Benchers. And that as of yesterday, I got a notice. I don't know where everybody sends me these things, but I enjoy them, keep sending them. And as of yesterday, I now heard that as chairman of the BOB, he set up a new panel to investigate, the Ogunde case, and by extension, he's also going to be involved. That's a bit untidy, isn't it?
If those are the facts, it would certainly be untidy.
So what are the facts?
Well, what I know is that the Bar Association made a complaint to its own disciplinary organs about a letter that had been written on behalf of the chambers of Chief Olanikwekun by a lady who was a partner there, and that letter on its face indicated egregious misconduct and a culture of subversion and corruption in the judicial process. This is something, whether it is true or not, that calls for investigation. It also something that, when it comes into the public space, becomes alarming to those who must have confidence in the administration of justice. The effectiveness of our administration of justice depends fundamentally on confidence we have in those who administer its highest levers. One of such levers is the body of benchers, which is supposed to be a body of legal practitioners of the highest distinction. It should be a model body which has exemplary behavior. And the reputation of that body is so critical to the reputation of the legal system and the legal profession, which has the exceptional right to regulate itself, that its reputation and its credibility should be more important than the fate, the fortune, or the personality of any individual. If a person holds the chairmanship of such a body, my belief, and this is based on my own ethical background, my own understanding of the responsibility of a lawyer, especially a lawyer at a high standard, is that it is more important to protect the institution and the larger profession, which has ennobled so many people who came from nowhere, and that it is important to protect that. And it seems to me that what is going on is that the interests of individuals has become more important than the reputation and credibility of our legal profession.
Okay, so then what about the issue in which Mr. Akpata told the chairman to step down,
I think
to recuse himself from being whatever of the body of benchers, because ultimately
I think that Olumide Akpata was right.
Okay,
I think that it is a stand which, in this nation of personalities and even in the profession of personalities, when you bring personalities as an interest above an institution, that by definition is corruption. But for him to have stood up to say that with clear expression and courage was a vindication of his responsibility for the rule of law and for the integrity of our legal profession. Whether people attribute motives or not, I don't know. I don't care. I don't know what I neither know nor care about the personalities involved. But I think that as an objective observer, it is my opinion that if a person holding a high office in a profession is tainted with scandal relating to professional misconduct, then his own duty, if he recognizes it to the profession, is to remove himself from a place where he cannot be seen to affect or influence. And a stain on an individual should not affect an institution. This is why across the world, people will say, well, I haven't done anything wrong, but I cannot allow the scandal to envelope the office that I occupy. If you recognize the importance of the office and you know your responsibility to it and you have honor.
So now that he has refused to do so, what next? Because what I got a notice yesterday to the effect that the panel has actually been constituted and they might just very well go ahead. So what do you think is going to happen?
You know,
do you agree that it sounds a bit untidy?
That's very, very tame expression.
Well, it's tame, well, you know.
I think I can't use the word on radio.
You know, you're a wordsmith.
It's a certain type of storm. It will be the delicate way will be to call it a fecal storm.
Kulakai. Wordsmith. Okay, but what do you think is going to happen eventually? What do you think will be the at the end of the day?
In Nigeria, people defy public opinion.
Yes.
And people are very stubborn in their tenacity to hold on to the baubles of office. You know, the dress of an SAN, the dress of public office is less important than the purpose for which you hold it. But many people are so vain that they cannot see themselves outside the trappings of office. And so therefore they will crash even with the office around them if it suits them. I'm not this case in particular, but across the board, this happens very often. And because there's nobody to push them. You look at what happened in England. The Prime Minister was defiant about continuing in the face of misconduct. But there are those grey men who will go to him and say, it's time to go.
It's time to go.
There are those who went to Margaret Thatcher and said, it's time to go.
Yes.
There are those who went to Richard Nixon and said to him, it's time to go. You do not have public support. Your continuance in this position is going to be damaging to the institution, to the constitution, to the presidency. And a man of responsibility would recognize that. But in Nigeria, this is not common.
Do you think it's time for Chief Ololanikwekun to go?
That is my opinion. I've said it before.
Have you communicated that to him? Is your fellow silk?
I haven't spoken to him personally about it, but I have made my public statement known that I think that the reputation and the integrity of our legal system and of the regulation of our profession is more important than his feelings.
A funny thing crept in, though, and it affects you partially. And that is that I saw some release where someone was saying they have an association of Yoruba lawyers. You know, you always have these funny things coming up at about this time.
I find these things farcical.
And they're Yoruba, aren't you?
Well, you know, recently somebody published something and they said that a group of Yoruba lawyers, how they were constituted, how their DNA was checked, or the genealogy, how they constituted themselves into a group which calls itself. They have all these groups across the board. Everybody wants power and they revolve around identities that are very often primordial. So you're Yoruba. If you're a lawyer, your reputation is, your loyalty is to the law, to the clear and orderly administration of justice and therefore society. It is a bedrock of our democracy. It is a bedrock of the Constitution. So if I don't see how you organize your responsibility to law around your ethnicity or your faith or some other, these instincts which cause people of low mentality to organize around primordial identity is a danger to the credibility of the profession. So if I'm a Yoruba judge, should a guy who's from Anambra State be afraid of me? He shouldn't, because he should recognize that I will apply the law without fear or favor.
Yeah.
If he thinks that I have to be a Yoruba or Igbo to hear his case, then the entire system of justice loses reputation, credibility, and it will not achieve its purpose. So I just find the idea of, I don't know who calls themselves the Association of Yoruba Lawyers, but I'm not a member, and I would be embarrassed to organize my thinking in a philosophical and intellectual space around this ethnicity.
It's the first thing that occurred to me talking to you. The next thing I was going to say is that how did we get to this? And I remembered that it's become a national phenomenon. Even on the political front now, we have all kinds of insinuations coming up. I spoke about that this morning with Sheriff. El-Rufai's tweets and letters, and some people are ready to burn this country.
Yes.
But once the ambition is not met, and I think it's sad. I never thought that we'd ever have. Do you have that of Muslim and Christian lawyers too?
Oh yes.
My God.
Yes.
So you have Association of Igbo lawyers.
There's Mulan, Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria. There's Class Fund, Christian Lawyers Association, or something or the other.
Oh no.
There's Eastern Bar Forum. There's Middle Belt Bar Forum. There's Arewa Northern Forum.
Even in Lagos, there's Ikeja, something, you know.
Well, those are branches, and you can organize under branches
yes.
for organization.
Okay.
But the problem is that you cannot. You see, law is a calling, but it's also an intellectual height. You should have an understanding about the philosophy of law, why you regulate society, why you come together to organize societies, and why you must organize it according to the rules which everybody can recognize and adhere to. If you don't have that glue, society falls apart. You need to be able to say whether I'm Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa or from Middle Belt. If I come to the law, it will apply to me equally. And impartially. If I stand up in court and I say I'm the spokesman of the Yoruba Association, I have, by that simple statement, polluted the fountain of justice by bringing into consideration a factor which is irrelevant to the law and to the administration of justice.
I'm sure that you might want to be polite about it, but for me, from the outside, I mean, my late dad was a lawyer and so on and so forth. I'm sure looking at it from the outside, I'm beginning to think that this profession, like most other things, is almost going to the dogs. You see people, even from their looks, even from speaking. I'm not talking about you know. But even from the speaking, from the eloquence and so on and so forth, even sometimes from the logic, you ask yourself what is happening to this profession.
Yes. Sometimes it's lack of exposure and ability and lack of command of language. That can be forgiven. But very often it's the result of a perversion of thinking, the corruption of your intellect by sentiments which are primordial. That is a big problem and a danger. So therefore you come to speak as an Igbo lawyer rather than as a lawyer. The people who were the original foundations of our profession, there were people from the East, Doma, Taslim Elias, Louis Mbanafo. Many of these people they have an ethnicity, but their ethnicity was never brought to the fore in their conduct and the operation of the levers of justice.
Well, I mean, okay, look, talking about ethnicity, I might not grab you again before you start picking up briefs from some of these politicians, but I'd just like to know what are your feelings about the way the campaigns are going. Well, the campaigns haven't started. How the prelude to the campaign is going. I'd just like to get a sense of how you're feeling about that.
Well, I think that they're devolving. A political campaign should be organized around ideas. Politics and government is about solving problems.
Yeah.
So therefore, the politics and the campaign should be organized around ideas which will solve those problems. That is a rational approach and one which the public should be able to join with. But I think that they're devolving because they're now becoming struggles over ethnic hegemony. I think that a number of the candidates have allowed their campaigns to become infiltrated and perhaps even are now being defined as campaigns for ethnic hegemony. I prefer to have a Nigerian president. I don't want a president who comes from any particular region. I don't think that the presidency is about compensation or about allocation. I think the presidency is about leadership, and leadership involves organizing the disparate and diverse aspects of our society in a coherent fashion. Therefore, if you cannot be seen to be the leader of one group and organize those strands together. So the challenge of leadership is how to unite and to inspire.
Don't you believe that some of these perceptions are being organized from the outside, to paint? I believe that there's been a lot of infiltration.
That's quite possible. And,
yes.
and this is to be expected. Any campaign unless it's lazy, recognizes that it has to control the narration about its campaign. It has to control the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that others are in their legitimate right are going to distort your story and to change its trajectory. They want to consume you with things that don't concern you. They want to give you problems you don't have. This is campaign. It's politics. But then it's your job. Why does the White House press secretary go to the podium every day? To control the news cycle. If I am the source of information, then I can control that information. If I allow other people to control the source of information, then I lose my direction. So these campaigns shouldn't sit down there crying like babies because somebody is misrepresenting them. It's their job to represent themselves.
Exactly.
In any campaign, if you study American political campaigns, every candidate is trying to paint the other in a certain way. And your task is to escape being painted in this way and to present your own story to the electorate. So this is a challenge of politics.
With what you see, any hope that the elections will be smooth? Do you think it will be highly competitive?
I think that the elections will be... I think the elections will hold in many parts of Nigeria. I think that there's going to be wide-scale disruption. But I think that the challenge of managing the process can still be met. But I think that we're going to be in for a very bumpy ride in the next
very
months.
bumpy.
Very bumpy. Hold on to your seats.
I just hope the flight is not aborted midway.
Well, if I was to speculate on that, I might be invited for questioning.
No. Well, I mean, if you look at the security situation that we are in,
it's disintegrating.
And you put it with the kind of rhetoric that's coming from all the political camps.
Yes.
Then you know that we need to be careful.
Yes,
that
many politicians are desperate and they're irresponsible.
But for those of us who are around in '66, that's what happened.
There you go.
The politicians refused to discipline themselves.
And we've only started teaching history. You're talking about that soon enough. But then if you don't know the history, you can't learn its lessons.
Again, now there's a problem now coming to teach history after you've put off the whatever for about 20 years.
Yes.
Don't be surprised at some of the books that will be written now. And that for me is a dangerous thing again.
Yeah, well, you have to. History, no matter how reputable a historian, the veracity of that history depends on a multiplicity of sources. And so if someone writes a book, someone will answer it. We'll find it somewhere in the middle. You try to find the middle, and you have to look for sources of verification which are non-controversial. So there's a challenge in framing curriculum.
I mean, we don't want to end up with our own version of a green book.
No, but then, it's part of the government's function to control the perception.
But it's the government that could be guilty of this.
I have no doubt. And for a government to have thought history was not important
in the first instance,
it just sends my mind reeling. I can't imagine how you could be so stupid as to think that people not knowing their history is going to allow them to make progress.
Okay, it's 9:47. That gives me just roughly... By the way, you have your candidates, right? You made up your mind on who you're going to vote for. Are you going to vote?
I will definitely vote.
I think if I had known that, I've registered near your house. Can take some of that nice whiskey. Well, I don't know.
Everybody must make sure to vote. And they should make sure that they don't walk away from the election, because the process determines their school, it determines their roads, it determines their healthcare.
Yes.
It depends.
Stay there.
Many more important things than who is the president. There are many more offices that are important day to day than the president.
Which is the most important, though?
Office?
Yes.
The most important office is that of the citizen.
Hmm.
That is the one that has power over every other. And that is the one that should decide how government is regulated in its own interest.
Okay, some people believe, and I'm one of those who will be saying, well, the youths, because it's the largest number
Correct.
and it's their future.
Yes.
It's up to you.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Well, it is. Democracy depends on the will of the majority.
Yes.
The youth are the majority. But then the various spectrums of society have a path to play. So I recognize that the highest numbers are with the youth. But the Bible says with the ancient is wisdom. And I think that even though many of the youth despise and abhor the history of this country and the way that the elders have behaved, there's still some value to take from the things that they have seen and the things that they have learned. You spoke about 1966.
Yes.
If people don't know what happened in 1966, they have no prediction, they have no means to organize to meet it. So they can despise the elders, that's fine, and they can exercise their political power. And their energy must propel the next government. But they should be able to listen also.
I tell you what I said last week when I was with Baba, politician.
Yes.
Our Papa. I said that somehow I look at the youth like you're in some kind of, the way the Germans hauled all the Jews and put them in one prison yard.
Concentration camp.
And then somebody throws the key from outside to open the door and get out of it.
Yes.
And you start playing soccer with the keys.
Sure, someone needs to tell you that's the key to get you out.
But you shouldn't know.
Yeah, don't do this, don't do that. You don't know everything.
You shouldn't know. So they throw the key.
Yes.
And rather than even at least try it in the door, then you start playing soccer.
I start from the assumption that I don't know anything. I was telling young lawyers recently, even as a lawyer of some seniority, I never assume that I know everything.
No, of course.
If I've done 74 libel cases, before I have a meeting on a libel case, I'm going to refresh my knowledge of what is the current status, because I know that if I don't learn every day, I'm dead.
You're dead. We don't want you dead. We want you alive. Let's take another phone call. Hello.
Good morning, Uncle Jimmy.
Morning, Pastor Ladipo. Just go straight.
My question to our learned lawyer.
Yes.
What kind of message? Because we continue to hear some high-profile cases that are going for plea bargain. Does this is it not encouraging corruption and some misbehavior in the society? Please help us in this regard, because if a man has been alleged to have taken so much amount of money, and the man came out and talking about plea bargain, is he not sending a message down? Thank you, sir. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you. He had to add that. God bless Nigeria.
Well,
for effect.
Nigeria is blessed by the hands of its own people. We can't throw up our hands in the sky and say God will come down. God will say, as they said, when you interrogate God and said, God, how did you let that happen? All you hear is an echo saying, how did you let that happen?
How did you let that happen, yes.
So the simple question, I think I answered it at the beginning. Plea bargain is a legitimate mechanism for regulating the resources and the outcomes in the criminal justice system. The problem we have here is that we need people who operate that system, who recognize the public interest. In the case of the Accountant General, if he's guilty of stealing 80 billion, I would not only take that 80 billion from him, I would dispossess him by fines to make him far worse off financially. And I would, in exchange for that, I would be willing to give him a reduced sentence. So the maximum of this sentence is 25. We're going to give you, the public will not accept if I don't give you more than 10, if I give you less than 10 years. And the public interest, and what the public will say, is a legitimate concern for those who arrange a plea bargain, not whether they've been bribed. And if that's the situation, then you say, you took 80 billion, I want 80 billion back, and I want you to pay a penalty of 60% of your original assets. That sort of consequence is an example to the public that no one is above the law, that angry beasts cannot go through the net of justice, and the public will be satisfied. So it's not about the plea bargain. As I said at the beginning, 90 to 95% of American criminal cases are determined by plea bargain. But people have confidence that there are consequences.
We see that in the movies.
Sure.
Some of us spent half our lives watching Perry Mason.
Al Capone was one of the most notorious American criminals. He was convicted on tax evasion.
Tax evasion, yes.
But he was a murderer. But he went to jail. And that was a consequence. There are people who have committed heinous crimes who have been arrested for infringing the Endangered Birds Act. What matters is that I put you in jail.
In jail. Oops.
And that the public is satisfied with the consequence.
Yeah, I gotta go.
It's been a pleasure. As always.
You're coming back, as usual.
As always.
This is where we call it a day. I'd like to thank Yemi Candid Johnson, SE. After all the time you put in the money, you must always add that SE. I'm not an SE. No. I'd like to thank Sherry for hanging around,
yes,
and Philip for, as usual, being behind the pillar. We'll be back here again tomorrow. And tomorrow is Dear Bumi. I have one heavy babe. You must watch it on YouTube. Oh, you guys out there. I have one heavy babe. Not for my own distance. I'm just... Why do you suddenly get interested?
It's because it's for your
heavy
own.
is a question of
He
value,
said
not a question of weight.
Okay, I'll see you all tomorrow. Let me get out of here. See you tomorrow at 9.
And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this time?
Yes, when is the president coming out to address us?
There's a few things. One, I have a burden and a passion for young people.
The fact that you have elected a man does not mean then you begin to order him around. The president will do whatever is good for the country at any given time.
Mr. Adeshino, isn't the president responsible to the people?
What should the next president do to root out stakeholders who are complicit?
You fire those. Those that need to be fired are fired. It's looking like a brand new Chelsea, attacking with so much fluidity.
Oh, you play! You know